Ferrari just discovered something in Lewis Hamilton's car that could change everything about what happened in Brazil. After Hamilton shockingly failed to reach Q3, Vasseur's post-qualifying debrief exposed a hidden flaw that no one in the paddock saw coming. This wasn't just another poor lap. This was a potential technical scandal, and it might explain why the most successful driver in F1 history was left stranded in P13. So what exactly did Ferrari find inside Hamilton's SF25, and why does it raise even more questions about their future together? It was supposed to be a turning point. The Brazilian Grand Prix, a track where Lewis Hamilton has written some of his most iconic chapters, from dramatic comebacks to heroic victories. This time it was different. The energy was there. The anticipation was palpable. But when the helmet came off on Saturday afternoon, the reality hit harder than anyone expected. P13, eliminated in Q2. Again. And this time, the silence inside the Ferrari garage spoke louder than any engine. The SF25 wasn't just off the pace, it was unpredictable, unstable. And for a driver like Hamilton, who has spent 2 decades building a reputation on feeling the car through the fingertips, it was a betrayal of trust in machinery. From the very first push lap, the car didn't behave as expected. Rear grip was inconsistent, braking zones felt rushed, and sector times fluctuated wildly between runs. Something wasn't right and Lewis knew it. But this wasn't a matter of one bad setup or a wrong tire call. What followed was even more alarming. Team principal Fred Vasseur reportedly discovered irregularities during the post-session checks, a component or calibration issue that could explain the car's unresponsive behavior. No official confirmation, yet whispers inside the paddock suggest it was a mechanical oversight that compromised performance in ways no simulator could predict. A detail so small, yet with consequences so big, it might explain why Hamilton was fighting the car instead of driving it. For fans watching the timing sheets, it looked like an off day. For those who listened closely to Hamilton's post-qualifying interviews, it sounded like something deeper. Mentally, I'm not okay, he admitted, a rare glimpse into the emotional toll this season has taken. Behind that calm exterior is a competitor who gave everything to Ferrari's vision, and yet continues to be handed a car incapable of matching his talent. And as the sun sets on Interlagos, the bigger question emerges: was this just one bad Saturday, or the clearest sign yet that Ferrari is losing Hamilton, one broken promise at a time? There are weekends where everything falls into place. And then there are weekends like this when the data lies, the car resists, and the driver is left asking himself whether the project he trusted is truly heading in the right direction. For Lewis Hamilton, Brazil 2025 was one of those weekends. The numbers painted a confusing picture. The setup was reportedly solid. The simulations showed promise. But as soon as he left the pit lane in Q2, it became obvious. Something was fundamentally wrong with the SF25. On paper, the car's balance should have been neutral. The team had refined mechanical grip levels across the final few races, and updates brought to Austin and Mexico were expected to peak here in Sao Paulo. But track reality exposed a brutal truth: the rear end was nervous, the tire warm-up was inconsistent, and the ride over bumps was unpredictable. Interlagos, with its elevation changes and rapid directional shifts, is a driver's circuit. But it's also unforgiving. If your car's balance is off by even a fraction, the lap time disappears. Hamilton was visibly fighting the car. Into turn 4, over the curbs in the infield section, and especially in the final braking zone where the car refused to decelerate smoothly, he looked like a passenger in a machine that wouldn't respond with any rhythm. It wasn't a matter of pushing too hard. It was a matter of surviving a lap without losing the rear. His steering corrections were constant, minor oversteer moments stacking up, scrubbing off the milliseconds that ultimately pushed him out of Q2. But the problem was deeper than driving feel. Internally, the team discovered telemetry discrepancies between Hamilton's car and Leclerc's. Slight differences in rear suspension behavior. Marginal loss in energy deployment in Sector 2. Not enough to trigger a fault, but enough to tilt the balance away from confidence. Vasseur reportedly ordered an immediate teardown of Hamilton's chassis after the session, looking for any mechanical issue that could explain why one of the sport's finest drivers was pushed into the midfield without warning. What makes this even more frustrating is that Hamilton's feedback had already indicated instability across practice sessions. He flagged it early, and yet Ferrari believed the numbers more than the man behind the wheel. That's the core of the problem. In a data-driven era, Trusting instinct over simulation is rare, but with a driver like Hamilton, who's built his legend on feel and adaptability, ignoring his signals is a mistake Ferrari cannot afford to repeat. In modern Formula One, engineering is the margin between greatness and collapse. And in Brazil, Ferrari's engineering team was exposed. What was intended to be a circuit that played to the SF25's mid-corner strengths turned into a minefield of unpredictability. Why? Because engineering didn't translate into execution, and Lewis Hamilton paid the price for it. Let's unpack it. The main issue wasn't raw power. Ferrari's straight-line performance was, in fact, reasonable. Nor was it high-speed aero. The SF25 held its own through the first sector. The real trouble began in the low-speed transitions and braking zones, especially between turn 8 and the final kink. Here, mechanical grip dropped off. The floor oscillated more than expected. The damping response failed to stabilize the rear during weight transfer. It was in these micro-movements areas where milliseconds bleed that the car refused to settle. And no amount of driving genius could mask that deficit. What makes it worse is the source of the issue. According to reports within Ferrari, post-qualifying data revealed that a minor calibration error in the rear suspension system may have caused the asymmetrical balance Hamilton was battling. It wasn't visible in the wind tunnel. It didn't register on simulations, but it became glaring once he hit the track. This is the kind of detail that separates front-runners from midfielders, and right now, Ferrari looks like the latter. But here's the part that should alarm fans the most. Hamilton had seen it coming. Since FP1, he had voiced concerns about rear instability and unpredictable yaw behavior on throttle exits. The engineers reviewed the data and believed it was within tolerances. But for a driver with Hamilton's sensitivity, someone who's built his reputation on maximizing the envelope, that assumption proved costly. He felt the limits shifting beneath him, and the car refused to communicate. That, in essence, is the breakdown. Not just mechanical, but philosophical. At this level, engineering isn't about tools alone. It's about translating instinct into design, feedback into solutions. And here, Ferrari failed to connect their numbers with Hamilton's reality. While Red Bull tunes their car around Verstappen style, and McLaren is tailoring setups to both Norris and Piastri, Ferrari remains caught between over-analysis and under-response. The gap isn't in hardware, it's in decision-making. And the cost. A world champion marooned in 13th, wondering if the team he trusted is truly listening. That was never the plan. Not for the man who made Mercedes a dynasty, not for a 7-time champion who risked legacy for a new challenge. And certainly not for a team that promised him a car to fight for wins, poles, and ultimately, that elusive 8th world title. But here we are in Brazil with Hamilton walking away from qualifying in silence, helmet on, P13 next to his name. No words. Just wait. The consequences are piling up. This wasn't a one-off. This was part of a pattern. Hamilton has now been knocked out in Q2 twice in the same weekend. In a Ferrari, at a circuit where he's previously been untouchable. He managed to rescue something in the sprint. 2 hard-earned points overtakes, signs of defiance, but that effort only highlights how much he's dragging this car beyond its ceiling. Because the truth is, the SF25 is not behaving like a title-contending machine. Not with the updates, not with the experience behind the wheel, and certainly not when it matters most. And the implications stretch far beyond just Interlagos. With 3 races left, Hamilton is now locked in a late-season battle just to protect pride. The standings are slipping. Morale is teetering. And with each technical error, each missed window, the pressure builds not just on the pit wall, but on the boardroom. Because if this continues, the whispers about a 2026 exit won't stay whispers. Hamilton didn't sign with Ferrari to fight for Q2 exits. He signed to win. And right now, they're not giving him the tools to do that. Let's be clear, this isn't a driver in decline. Hamilton's feedback is razor sharp. His pace, when the car allows it, remains elite. His overtaking in the sprint reminded everyone that class is permanent. But class needs performance to shine. And performance is exactly what Ferrari's engineers are failing to deliver. There's a dissonance between what the numbers suggest and what the track reveals. And in that dissonance, a championship dream is unraveling. So now the forecast is grim. He starts deep in the pack for the Grand Prix. Strategy will be aggressive. Recovery will be essential. But another disappointment could be catastrophic, not just for points, but for trust. And if Ferrari loses Hamilton's trust, they don't just risk losing results. They risk losing everything.